organ in the body. And every major organ in the body experiences what we will call dual innervation. And we'll talk all about that in a couple weeks, okay? But it's about all I can say about it now that you want to hear, probably.
Is it involved with the endocrine system?
Oh, probably. But for instance, nerve is involved in slowing down the heart. Innervation of this nerve enhances digestive function, enhances urinary function, slows down the heart.
So that's involved when you hear the phrase a vagovasal response?
Yes, yeah. Very good. And it is a nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system, which we'll get into. Okay, the vagus is the only cranial nerve to exit the head and neck. It exerts important influences on most visceral organs. These influences are parasympathetic, which will mean a lot to us later on. So there you see it exiting the head, traveling right alongside the carotid artery on both sides. Okay, and attaching to every major visceral organ. And that of course has to be the Netter picture. Okay, so there it is, 10. We have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So what do you think that one's numbered? 11, yeah. So loss of function inhibits speaking and swallowing. But which one now? Oh, total destruction leads to death, so that would be the vagus nerve. Okay. So. The accessory nerve is a little more mundane. It's a motor nerve that controls the muscles of the neck and is involved with turning of the head in various directions, either up and down or sideways. Sternocleidomastoid, trapezius muscle. Okay. So accessory dysfunction, inability to turn the head to the affected side. Shrugging the shoulders becomes difficult. Oops. David. Okay, so there's a picture showing I've sort of had spastic fingers the last couple of days. There's a cool picture that shows various branches of the accessory nerve going to the sternocleidomastoid and the trapezius. Okay, so there it is.
Is that kind of why when there's like nesting or something and the patient's if the doctor thinks the patient had neck injury or something, they have them feel these movements on their arms and stuff, shoulders.
Yeah, they do all kinds of tests if they, think you've injured one of these cranial nerves, and they're knowing something about them, that's why we're talking about them. There's a whole battery of tests that physicians learn, and especially neurologists know. That maybe you've been put through some of these tests that they suspect certain types of neurological damage that test for dysfunction of various of these cranial nerves. Okay. So injury causes the head to rotate towards the injury. Finally, the hypoglossal nerve travels through the hypoglossal canal. Remember that? Okay. And motor innervation of the tongue. So this one is involved in speaking. Passes through the hypoglossal canal, controls food mixing during chewing, and many of the aspects of speech. Okay. Depend on the tongue. difficulties in speech and swallowing if you exhibit hypoglossal dysfunction. The tongue is rather an elaborate structure. It's anchored to the hyoid bone. Okay. Hypoglossal nerve 12. Okay. Where do you see it? Coming out of the hypoglossal canal. There it is. Damage inhibits speech and swallowing. So this is a little summary of the 12 cranial nerves and whether or not they exhibit motor function, sensory function. And we'll see that if there is any motor function, that it is almost always parasympathetic nerve. Okay? Because cranial nerves are by their very nature parasympathetic, and that will mean something later. So there are the nerve roots and all that stuff, and that's it for that. So that's good stuff. Let's look at the models. Okay?
What are the ones you wanted to add?